Welcome to our live feed here. And what we want to do for not more than 30 minutes, we want to just give you a little bit of a teaser of what's going to happen November 13th and 14th, correct?
Yeah.
And
you planned it.
I planned it, that's right, I ought to know. And the theme is beauty, all right? And beauty as in kind of like the high-minded kind of beauty, not the beauty you find in glamour or cosmopolitan or skin-deep beauty or beauty as in the eye of the beholder. But all of that is part of that, but we want to go deeper than that. And my subtext on that, as you all know, is the oft-forgotten virtue in the art and science of defending the faith. Just again, I'm no expert in this, but all I know is beauty was part of the high virtues that was part of the truth, goodness, and beauty. I feel like truth, we got a lot of that going on in the world of apologetics. William Lane Craig, debates, all of those guys, they're doing wonderfully there. Goodness, I think we all have an understanding of what morality is. In fact, even on a church level, on a non-profit NGO type level, we do a lot of good works like Samaritan's Purse. So there's a lot of goodness there. But beauty, it seems like it's, in my experience, just not even there at all. It's not. I don't know what's going on there, but that's one of the three that is high on the list when it comes to our understanding of God, our encounters with God and His creation. So guys, that's why. Yeah, you're right. I did put together the conference.
Right. Yeah. I got it. I mean, yeah, I'm speaking at it, but
yeah.
That doesn't mean I know when it is. You put it on the calendar.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I am thankful, and that number one, I know you guys. Number two, that's also kind of like your heart, your passion, is to just show the beauty of God in many ways. So maybe if you guys have thought to your topics already, maybe we can give our audience a little bit of a teaser of what they can expect at the conference and why is beauty important. Did I misspeak? Did I say something right on that, or what are your takes? What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, okay, there's tons of things there. Beauty is hyper important. I mean, you mentioned the transcendental trinity of good, true, and beautiful, which I'm not going to talk tons about because that's, I think, pretty much the heartbeat of everything Rich is going to say. Because he uses that phrase as a comma. Actually, he says it frequently enough. And I know, like, Lindsay's talk at the conference is going to be on what we have when we see goodness and truth without beauty. You need all of them together to actually have a complete understanding of truth. Truth without goodness or beauty is not actually truth. And so, beauty without goodness, so they all connect, and so I'm excited for what Lindsay's going to do. You mentioned the idea, though, of that when we're looking at beauty, we're talking about... you're not talking about the skin deep things, the glamour type things. It's fascinating. The general idea about beauty in that way is actually a relatively new idea, at least in the history of philosophy, the history of Western culture. And it all goes down to the fact that Immanuel Kant ruined beauty. Kant ruined a lot of things, actually. Kant was great at ruining things. That's about it. Like, Kant is a good ruiner. But he ruined that. But basically what happened was because he drew this distinction between the beautiful and the sublime, in which the sublime is that which is overpowering, and that which is this overpowering thing that we can't understand, and therefore it creates in us a kind of fear. And beauty is that which we fully understand, and therefore can kind of toy around with in our head. So beauty becomes very superficial for Kant. The sublime becomes this more mystical or powerful type thing. That's not the classical conception of beauty by any means whatsoever. Those two things were there. Granted, there's books written on the sublime from ancient Greece, but it's with an eye toward beauty. So there's something there, especially in the Christian understanding, the Christian medieval understanding, what we see in Scripture, is that when we talk about the beauty of the Lord, it's not this idea that it's a very... weak, fully understandable. But the beauty of the Lord involves a type of, joyful terror, a type of, Hans Urs von Balthasar, easily just best name in theology. With a last name like von Balthasar, you were either a theologian or you teach at Hogwarts. Like those are your options, and one is not real. So he had to be a theologian. But he talks about the fact that there is this drawing power.
You might want to spell that just for our listeners. Maybe they want to read that.
Why would you talk to someone that is a horrible speller?
Okay.
And ask me to spell Hans Urs von Balthasar?
Okay.
What is it? It's Hans space URS space HAN space Hans Urs von, it's VON space and then Balthasar.
Okay.
Which is
must read, huh?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay. Just want to make.
But he says that beauty is this thing that as we see it, it draws us into itself, but there's a crushing power to it, kind of like the tide, where the tide will bring a boat in, but as it brings a boat in, there's a chance that the boat could be destroyed by the tide. But it's a joyful fear, as it will, that we fear as beauty's crushing, which we experience that, right? Like we experience that with the general idea, like when you start dating someone and you're like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, I don't want to mess this up. I want to be with her, but I kind of don't want to be because I'm a little queasy that everything I do is going to ruin this, but I also am loving this, so this is great. That's what beauty does. That's what the beauty of the Lord we're talking about. That's something much more powerful than this shallow, superficial idea. Now, there's a lot of things there, and kind of where my talk is going to end up going is talk about the fact that what happened there is with what Kant did, is that beauty becomes very superficial. So as a society, we have satisfied ourselves with a superficial type of beauty, not actually with a real content of beauty. And therefore, because of that, we've made ourselves far too easily pleased, but we're not pleased at all. And therefore, we end up dissatisfied. We end up in a state of boredom when we actually embrace and seek and behold the true beauty of God. That infuses life with meaning and purpose, and therefore those things are removed. So,
okay.
Tag.
Very good. Yeah. Tag, you're it, Rich. What's your kind of like your?
That was nice, by the way.
What are you gonna talk about and give us a little bit of taste of what we might expect?
Yeah. So, very much on the coattails of what Sam was saying. I definitely
Tired of carrying you, Rich.
Well, hey, I don't know what to say to that. But yeah, you're right.
I'm not going to edit a lot of this.
Good. Don't.
I agree. So goodness, truth, and beauty, I think, characterizes quite literally everything we have in the universe. I give a talk on this. I think there's literally two exceptions to this. But they're called the transcendentals because they transcend over every existing thing in the universe. So that sounds very abstract. How does that actually hit the ground? So one of the things I want to look at, I think the title of my talk is something like art, apologetics, and Christian cultural analysis. So how do these things that we're talking about, which, I mean, the MacBook you're using is beautiful. Sam, you're beautiful.
Well, thank you so much.
There are a lot of things in culture that is comprised of goodness, truth, and beauty. So let's take a look a little bit more rigorously at this third component of beauty. And so I try to offer some kind of a cultural analysis from a Christian point of view of what counts as Christian culture. And I think this is dangerous because it's easily misinterpreted as, for example, some people say, the only songs that really contribute to the kingdom are the ones that mention Jesus' name or what have you, or you have to put John 3:16 on the bottom of your cup to be a Christian burger company or whatever. And so there's a lot of good to that. But trying to spell out a framework for analyzing culture that doesn't just give into the simplicity of, it's got to say Jesus' name, or there's got to be a cross on my t-shirt, and therefore it's a Christian t-shirt company. Wait a second, you just make a really good-looking t-shirt. That might be much more kingdomly than having a cross that's kind of out of place. So I'm trying to offer that kind of a framework of analysis on culture.
Like a kingdom understanding of beauty, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. I know you might be doing some breakout sessions.
Yeah,
Jacob,
I wish I could put it so beautifully like they did.
Your looks make up for Jacob.
Oh yeah.
Always
Wow,
wanted
so
to-
you're really just throwing out
He's the
the
George
chocolate.
Clooney of apologetics.
I'll give you that.
I'm having to grow my beard.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Apologetics.
Yeah. Couple qualifiers.
That's
but
why
yeah.
we have him on the team.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm going to look at more from a similar perspective, like Richard, more from an existential viewpoint, and see how order in our life, in our soul, in our relationship brings about beauty. When we talk about beauty, it's all about order. And from a Christian viewpoint, when we see that God who created the world in order, He's also put this longing within our hearts to seek that kind of order in our life itself. And also, given the world that we live in today, and there is so much of plurality that we experience in all aspects of our life, how can we coexist in some manner? I'm not using that term in the sense that we compromise, no, but we stand for our...
That bumper sticker coexist?
No,
okay.
but we seek that kind of order in our life where we respect the fact that we are being made in the image of God, and how we can restore order in our life itself. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective. So basically I'm looking into the theme, beauty in diversity.
Yes, very good, very good. Just FYI, I know I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to the world, I'm talking to everybody. But if anyone is interested in, hashtag beauty as apologetics. Right now, you can do that if you want. There's a minute delay. If you have any questions, you want to participate in the discussion, hashtag beauty as apologetics. In a minute, I'm sure you will hear what I'm just saying. But I don't know if anyone's going to be checking social media. Anybody bring their phones to check? I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I mean, I can. I can
Yes, you
hashtag
can.
something beauty as apologetics.
Jeremy's got it.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Jeremy, you're there? Awesome. Maybe you can, if anybody wishes to do that, I'm thinking we're going to be doing it for not more than, 10 more minutes. But we will edit this down a little bit, edit the ends of this, and then put it on our Facebook as a teaser. But guys, you know what I'm interested in is hopefully somebody will cover the whole. In my thinking, in our culture, our understanding of beauty has been so just limited to, let's say, skin deep, eye of the beholder, which I know the subjective part of beauty is very much true, but if it's just that, we have big problems. The thing what's interesting, I don't know where the shift happened, but I think my analysis of culture right now, maybe in the last 20 or 30 years, when something is beautiful, I mean truly beautiful, subjective, objectively, and let's just say a person, got good facial structure, everything. I am sad right now that culture, because of an unidentified feeling or maybe something that they don't wish to identify as they're in awe of something. So rather than be in awe of something or appreciate it in a magnanimous way, because they can't quite understand that feeling, they reject it. It's an interesting thing. I think you touched on that a little bit. So what happens in culture, things that are beautiful are marred. The viewer, the beholder, destroys it because they can't understand it, or they label it now as not beautiful. And we see that on TV, in the movies. And then for the subject, for the person, again, I started it out with the person. For the person themselves, because they don't have a deeper understanding of beauty, they take that on, what's reflected back at them, and they see themselves as not beautiful anymore. And then they take part in the marring of the beauty. So it's interesting how I see that, and I'm saddened by that. And then so now we have this notion of beauty is in the eye of the beholder as a pacifier, because they mask the objective part. So now to pacify people, they go, oh, well, yeah, no, you're beautiful too. Oh, it's all a subjective thing. In other words, they can't bring themselves or everybody else with them to say, no, that's really beautiful. And so therefore, if there's not that, the ugly is also mislabeled. We don't call anything ugly anymore. Does that make sense? So like the urinal in whatever museum.
Duchamp's fountain.
Okay, that's artful, tasteful, and beautiful, apparently.
Well, see, when he did that as a point of saying, somewhat similar to what you're talking about, to mock contemporary art at that point in time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Then concurrent, but if we move, more, to more contemporary times, beauty is actually what art is not trying to do right now. art sees beauty as easy. That's not the point. Art is trying to be expressionate, and the idea is that if I don't see the entire person as actually fully beautiful as it was, what must be expressed is something that is controversial. It's something like one of the more, and just forewarning to our listeners, things are about to get a little PG-13. But a famous art piece that was in the Met and won a lot of awards. The piece's just name is Piss Christ, and all it is, it's a jar full of human urine with a crucifix inside it. And that is considered great art. Alchemy cabinet, which is an empty cabinet just with the remains of a woman's abortion in it. That is considered great art. It's not aiming toward beauty.
It's not. Okay.
It's aiming
so the
toward,
authors are actually saying this is not.
They're not
beauty.
aiming toward beauty.
Well,
So-
so in the
yeah.
go ahead.
So
And
what
the
is
artist himself, I was listening to him, and he said people didn't know at that point that he was making this as a Christian. What he was conveying was, this is exactly the crucifixion of Christ was. It was ugly. It was, the most debased face, and he was trying to put that through art. But people, when they saw it, they thought that he was actually
Right.
going
Right.
against
So
this understanding
yeah,
of what cross is.
yeah. So I was studying this piece a little bit as well. So right, so Andre Serrano, when he actually put this out there, he actually did it for the sake of saying, yeah, look, this is actually how society and culture already treats it. Let's just at least admit this fact.
Right.
And he he considers himself a follower of Christ. And so this is where I try to bring in a framework of intention. The intentionality was there.
Yeah.
But we also have to be responsible for the impact that we make with our art.
Yeah.
Because you talk to any Christian leader or thinker today, a lot of them still think actually that came from a non-Christian trying to debase Christianity, but actually, so there is some responsibility that the artist has in terms of the impact that they make as well.
So you're saying, obviously, in the world of art, I mean, it's a wide field, but you're inserting the whole idea of responsibility.
Yeah.
I like that. But what about beauty? I mean, if we say art is art, should beauty be a property of art, or is it vice versa, or?
Well,
You know what I mean?
It depends on what you think art is for, which I think one of the talks is about what art is for, but it's not my talk. Is that one yours? No. Okay, so then it's the other one. It's the fourth talk.
I think Krishna Swanger is going to do a breakout session on something like that.
Oh, excellent.
Like,
But the question is, what is art attempting to do? Because there is a point in time you have to ask a question about can art about the crucifixion, is that going to be beautiful? Well, if we understand beautiful as pretty, well then when you behold Christ on the cross, there's nothing pretty about that. But if we understand beauty as something deeper than pretty, and the way I look at it when I'm teaching my introduction to philosophy students, I talk about the fact that everyone seems to understand there's a difference between pretty and beautiful. Just the terms are about that. And the fact is, even today, in college culture, we've added to pretty and beautiful. You have the idea of sexy or hot, right? And so the fact is, we know these are referencing something different. I was like, if you don't think they're referencing something different, just look at the question of when you see a newborn baby, what is your response? No matter what that baby looks like, you say that is a beautiful baby because there's something beautiful. I mean, the baby, it's gooey and squishy and red and whatever, but still, there's something beautiful about this baby because it transcends the physical. If someone looks at a newborn baby and goes, "Oh, that's a pretty baby," you go, "That's not accurate. You're not hitting the nail on the head enough." Of course, if someone looks at it and says that's a sexy baby, that's a problem. Just in general about terminology, completely. But the fact is, when you look at that, a newborn baby is beautiful because there's something more than that. So, to art, should art be trying to be beautiful? Well, I would say that art that is attempting to communicate something of value is attempting to communicate something beautiful, because beauty, even in that which might not be pretty, that which might not be physically desirable, is still something that draws a person in. And so I think art wants to do that, but art at this point in time is trying to be repulsive in many situations and trying to repel, which is much a different thing.
Even with cultures, if we see the very topic of diversity, we see so much of differences in cultures. And some cultures would look really bad, some of the practices that they do. But we need to recognize also is that what those practices signifies is beautiful for them, even though from our viewpoint, those practices may look ugly. So how is it that we can actually give them a right picture of that which it signifies, and then come to the art or the culture and bring about changes there?
I think that's right. So I think because a lot of times as evangelicals we stray away from anything that sounds relativistic, but context matters to what's being communicated and expressed in the art piece. So this line that you reiterated a couple times here of beauty being in the eye of the beholder, I think that's rather unfortunate. So you'll hear evangelicals who are very big on absolute truth, objective morality, but when it comes to beauty, somehow they say, well, actually, it's really hip to say that beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I thought about this a little bit. And one way I think we can parse it is, so take an example of a young baby, right? One's own baby, let's say, right, or child, or even a wine connoisseur who's able to take, a wine differently than someone who's a novice, let's say. I would say that the appreciation of a particular, whether it's wine or a child or what have you, the appreciation of the beauty in that wine or in that child can vary. But that doesn't change the objectivity of the beauty itself, right? So the moment we say that beauty is subjective or it's all in the eyes of the beholder, then it becomes completely relativistic. But there's reasons why certain songs, that we call beautiful, have a particular rhythm to it. They're not completely random. Not every other line is longer than the other, and so on and so forth. There's symmetry, there's form and function, there's even the lyrics of a song, right? So all of these things, what I call kind of the inherent value of the song, that is a part of analyzing whether the song is actually objectively beautiful. As opposed to just saying, well, it's all about preferences and tastes, and that enters in, but it doesn't take away from the objectivity of a particular.
All right, let me ask this question. In the objectivity of beauty, I'm curious, would you say that there are degrees from the not beautiful to the beautiful? Like, ultimate beauty would be Christ, So, in other words, I guess my second corollary to that is are we ever justified to say something is ugly?
Sure.
Yeah, I've had blue cheese before.
I love it.
Oh my goodness. That's a good example.
No, I do think we're justified in calling things ugly. And to that, even the thing that with Jacob, the fact is, taste is important. And I think that's what Rich is jumping into. David Bentley Hart in his book Beauty of the Infinite talks about the fact that when it comes down to it, Nietzsche's problem with Christianity is that Nietzsche had bad taste. Like that's the main point. Because the fact is, our certain tastes, my individual preference, my individual taste, does not detract from the beauty of something. So when it comes to blue cheese, I do not enjoy blue cheese. Jacob apparently does, which means when it comes down to asking the question, is this beautiful blue cheese? Is this blue cheese pleasing? I would be completely out of the running to be able to give you any type of example about that.
But
someone
the point
who's tuned to it,
yeah, there are certain. Cheese is hard because for it to be spoiled is actually a good thing.
Yeah,
some cases,
exactly.
right? Yeah, you take
With a good line.
like a green apple versus I only eat Fuji apple or whatever, right? And you say, well, green apple is terrible. How could you eat that soft version of an apple, right? But we all know what an actually spoiled apple is. That's objectively verifiable, as it were. You can give a standard for what a healthy apple is versus right, but you can within that, right, within objectivity, you can have a variety of tastes, right? I prefer green, I like pink lady or whatever, right?
It's a preference thing.
Yeah, and so that's where.
But it doesn't take away from the objective. That's the point.
At all.
Right,
Yeah. Even in terms of our being, if you see our anatomy, a doctors may disagree in terms of diagnosis. They may say that you have this problem, that problem, and everything, but they would never say that you need an extra limb. They know how you should look like. They know how you function. I think that's an important aspect to beauty as well.
I like that function and beauty. Yeah.
And really, and that which is beautiful, like if we look at the issue of music, like it's interesting, like even people who say they hate classical music, and really only like gangster rap or something like that, it's hard to get around Bach. Like there's something about like even if you say that's not my preference, there's still an idea of okay, but yeah, I see how that's a thing. Like there's something about that that's like okay, I understand how that could be, even if it's not my taste.
Right.
And so that's where it tastes, and people's tastes change. When I'm teaching stuff to my students, I point out the fact that like I love Indian food. I'm a huge fan. Like Vindaloo chicken and I are like best friends, right? But like a 5-year-old probably is not going to do well with that level of spice. At least a 5-year-old like from Minnesota probably isn't going to do that well with that level of spice. It doesn't mean that they don't like it. It doesn't mean that it just means that their taste is not prepared for it.
Right.
They're not in a place where they can experience something at that depth. So part of the issue with Christianity is the depth of the beauty of Christ and the shallowness of our culture is that it's actually too overpowering for the taste that we've cultivated as a society. Like it dwarfs us and we just can't handle it.
See, that's great. See, that's why this is exciting stuff. Because my hope, and we'll end pretty soon, my hope is through our conference is we give our audience tools to be able to make distinctions, careful distinctions between even the whole subjectivity and objectivity and the whole taste and preference versus maybe a humility of knowing, wait, I guess you're right, and I need to learn to discern what is beautiful. And perhaps if I've never known that in any way, shape, or form, perhaps now's the time. So that is great, guys. So, well, thank you all, and I hope that is a little bit of a taste for our audience. We would definitely encourage you guys to sign up for the conference. It's November 13th and 14th, and some of our plenary speakers are right here. We're going to be tackling the whole issue of beauty, the oft-forgotten virtue, and the art and science of defending the Christian faith. So our hope is that we will see you there. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.